Stop scrolling, because what's unfolding right now could directly affect your Social Security, SSI, SSDI, or VA benefits. A viral investigation is exploding across social media and Washington headlines with one blunt message at the center of it all. Fraud is fraud. And this time, it's not just talk, it's triggering audits, reviews, and renewed scrutiny that could impact millions of beneficiaries, especially those who think this doesn't apply to them. Here's why this matters. Officials are responding to mounting pressure after claims surfaced about improper payments, false eligibility reports, and benefit misuse, some accidental, some intentional, and some allegedly organized. The result? Agencies are tightening enforcement, cross-checking records, and re-examining cases that were once considered settled. For many honest recipients, this isn't about panic, it's about awareness. But for others, even small mistakes, outdated information, or misunderstandings could suddenly raise red flags. And let's be clear, this is not about scaring you. It's about making sure you're informed before changes hit your mailbox or your bank account. Because once reviews begin, the consequences can move fast. Payment delays, overpayment notices, benefit suspensions, or demands for repayment. The phrase "fraud is fraud" isn't just a slogan, it's becoming policy language. In this video, we're breaking down what's actually happening, what's confirmed versus exaggerated, who's most at risk, and, most importantly, what you can do right now to protect yourself and your benefits. This information could save you stress, money, and months of uncertainty. If you rely on Social Security, SSI, SSDI, or VA benefits, you need to hear this. And if this kind of clear, no-nonsense update matters to you, hit that like button right now. It helps more people get the facts before it's too late. What's happening right now is bigger than a headline and louder than social media rumors. Behind the scenes, federal agencies are under intense pressure to prove they are cracking down on fraud, waste, and abuse. And the phrase you're hearing everywhere, "fraud is fraud," isn't just political rhetoric. It's becoming the standard being applied across benefit programs that millions of Americans depend on to survive. And that's exactly why this moment feels different. This isn't about one isolated case or one viral clip. This is about a system-wide shift in how benefits are reviewed, verified, and enforced. For decades, Social Security and disability programs have operated on trust paired with periodic verification. If you qualified, you qualified. If your circumstances didn't change, your benefits continued. But now, that quiet stability is being disrupted. Lawmakers, inspectors general, and oversight committees are publicly demanding accountability, and agencies are responding the only way they know how, by tightening the rules and looking backward as much as forward. That means past applications, old medical records, income reports, living arrangements, and eligibility details that haven't been reviewed in years are suddenly being re-examined. And here's the part that's making people nervous. This new wave of scrutiny does not only target intentional fraud, it's also catching mistakes. Paperwork errors, missed updates, income changes that weren't reported correctly, a side job that wasn't clearly explained, a change in living situation that felt minor at the time. These are the kinds of things that never raised alarms before, but today they're exactly what automated systems and auditors are flagging. If you've ever thought, "I did everything right, so this doesn't apply to me," you're not wrong, but you might not be fully protected either. The system doesn't always distinguish intent first. It flags discrepancies first. And once a discrepancy is flagged, the burden often shifts to you to prove that nothing improper happened. That's where the stress begins, because for someone living check to check, even a temporary suspension or delay can be devastating. Now let's talk about why this has gone viral. The reason this story has exploded is because people are sharing real experiences, notices arriving unexpectedly, requests for documentation going back several years, letters using language that sounds accusatory even when no wrongdoing is proven. Some recipients are being told they were overpaid and now owe thousands of dollars back, even when they genuinely didn't know a mistake had occurred. Others are seeing benefits paused while reviews are conducted, with no clear timeline for resolution. And when the public hears "fraud crackdown," fear spreads fast. Social media fills in the gaps with speculation. Some creators exaggerate, others oversimplify, and suddenly people believe everyone is about to lose their benefits overnight. That's not true, but it's also not harmless hype. Something real is happening, and it's important to understand it clearly, calmly, and accurately. The federal government is facing enormous financial pressure. Social Security's long-term funding challenges are no secret. Disability trust funds are constantly under scrutiny. VA programs are expanding while budgets are being questioned. In that environment, proving that improper payments are being addressed becomes politically powerful. That's why enforcement language is getting tougher. That's why phrases like "fraud is fraud" are being repeated publicly. It sends a message that no exceptions will be made. But here's the reality most people aren't talking about. The majority of benefit recipients are honest. They qualify. They follow the rules. They rely on these payments to pay rent, buy groceries, and afford medication. And that's exactly why broad enforcement efforts can cause collateral damage. Systems don't feel empathy. Algorithms don't understand context. They see numbers, dates, and mismatches, and they flag first, ask questions later. If you receive SSI, even small income changes matter. A family member helping with bills, temporary work, gifts, shared housing arrangements. These details can impact eligibility, and if they weren't reported exactly the way the system expects, they can be misinterpreted. SSDI recipients face similar challenges when attempting to work part-time or test their ability to return to employment. VA beneficiaries deal with their own layers of documentation, disability ratings, and eligibility reviews that can shift if records are reinterpreted. This is why awareness matters more than fear. Panicking doesn't help, but pretending this isn't happening doesn't help either. The smartest move right now is understanding how these reviews work and what puts people at risk. Many reviews are triggered automatically through data matching with the IRS, state agencies, and financial institutions. If income reported to one agency doesn't line up perfectly with another, a review can start, even if the difference was legal or temporary. Once a review begins, communication becomes critical. Ignoring letters is one of the worst mistakes people make, often because they're overwhelmed or scared. But silence is interpreted as non-compliance. Providing documentation late can delay decisions, and misunderstanding what's being asked can lead to incorrect responses that complicate matters further. This is where many people unintentionally make their situation worse, not because they did anything wrong, but because they didn't know how to respond. It's also important to understand that not every notice means fraud is suspected. Many letters are routine verification requests. The language may sound intimidating, but it doesn't automatically mean wrongdoing. However, failing to respond can escalate the situation quickly. That's why reading everything carefully and keeping records has never been more important than it is right now. Another thing people don't realize is that overpayment notices don't always mean you'll lose everything. There are appeal processes, there are waiver requests, there are repayment plans, but these options only exist if you act. Too many people assume the government's decision is final, when in reality, many overpayment cases are reduced or dismissed once proper context is provided. The problem is that stress and confusion cause people to freeze, and the clock keeps ticking. For American households already struggling with inflation, rising rent, and medical costs, this uncertainty feels cruel. A system designed to provide stability suddenly feels fragile. That's why this topic hits so hard. It's not just policy, it's personal. It's your electricity bill. It's your prescription refill. It's your ability to sleep at night knowing your deposit will arrive on time. And let's be honest, trust in institutions is already shaky. When people hear aggressive slogans and see enforcement headlines without clear explanations, it fuels anxiety and resentment. That's why clear, grounded information matters more than ever. You deserve to know what's real, what's exaggerated, and what steps actually protect you. So here's the grounded truth. Benefits are not being canceled en masse. There is no secret order eliminating SSI, SSDI, or VA payments overnight. But there is increased enforcement, expanded data matching, and a stronger emphasis on accountability. That means the margin for error is smaller than it used to be. It means staying informed is no longer optional, it's essential. If you haven't reviewed your benefit information recently, now is the time. Make sure your income, address, living arrangements, and work activity are accurately reported. Keep copies of letters and responses. If something doesn't make sense, don't assume. It's better to ask than guess. And if you receive a notice, treat it seriously, even if you believe it's a mistake. This moment is a reminder that benefits are not just payments. They're contracts with rules, timelines, and responsibilities on both sides. Most people uphold their end. The challenge now is making sure the system recognizes that. As this story continues to unfold, we're going to keep breaking down what changes, what stays the same, and how real people are being affected, not just headlines. Because fear spreads fast, but clarity spreads protection. And the more you understand, the less power uncertainty has over you. If this video helped you feel more informed, more prepared, or even just a little less anxious about what's happening, make sure you support it by liking the video. That simple action helps push accurate information to more people who desperately need it right now. And stay with us, because this conversation isn't over, and neither is the fight to protect the benefits millions of Americans depend on every single month. And that's the key point most people miss. This isn't about choosing sides or getting caught up in political noise. It's about understanding that the system is changing its posture. And whenever that happens, everyday people feel it first. Historically, whenever enforcement ramps up, there's always a transition period where confusion peaks. Letters go out faster than explanations. Policies are interpreted inconsistently across offices. Call centers get overwhelmed. And recipients are left trying to make sense of vague language while their livelihoods hang in the balance. Right now, many Americans receiving benefits are quietly asking the same question late at night. Am I okay? And that question alone tells you everything about why this moment matters. People who have followed the rules for years are suddenly second-guessing themselves. They're replaying old decisions in their heads. Did I report that correctly? Did I send that form? Did that temporary help from family count as income? These doubts aren't coming from guilt. They're coming from uncertainty. What makes this even more difficult is that benefit programs don't always communicate in plain language. Official notices are written to protect agencies legally, not to calm recipients emotionally. So when someone reads a phrase like potential overpayment or eligibility review, their mind jumps straight to the worst-case scenario. That stress alone can cause mistakes, rushed responses, or delayed action, which then creates real problems where none existed before. For SSDI recipients in particular, the fear of work-related scrutiny is intense. Many people want to try working again, even part-time, but they're terrified of crossing an invisible line they don't fully understand. The rules are complex, trial work periods are misunderstood, and enforcement language doesn't always explain nuance. So people end up feeling punished for trying to improve their lives, even when the program technically allows it. SSI recipients face a different but equally stressful challenge. The program's strict income and asset limits mean even small changes can trigger reviews. A modest savings account, a short-term job, help with rent. These things can look harmless in real life, but appear significant on paper. And when systems flag them without context, it puts recipients on the defensive immediately. VA beneficiaries are not immune either. Disability ratings, service-connected conditions, and compensation levels are all subject to review. When broader fraud crackdowns dominate headlines, veterans worry they'll be swept into something they didn't cause. For people who already sacrificed so much, the idea of having to prove themselves again feels deeply unfair. That emotional weight is something numbers don't capture, and yet it's very real. Stress affects health, anxiety affects decision-making, and uncertainty affects trust. That's why responsible coverage of this topic matters so much. Sensationalism gets clicks, but it leaves people feeling helpless. Accurate, grounded information gives people power. One of the most important things to understand right now is that reviews are often procedural, not punitive. Agencies are responding to oversight demands by documenting compliance. That means verifying files, reconciling data, and showing they're doing their job. The problem is that those processes don't always feel neutral from the recipient's perspective. They feel threatening because the stakes are so high. If your benefits are your primary source of income, even a temporary delay can disrupt everything. Rent doesn't wait. Utilities don't pause. Pharmacies don't accept explanations instead of payment. So when someone receives a letter that implies possible interruption, their entire sense of security is shaken instantly. That's why preparation is your strongest defense. Not panic, not anger. Preparation. Knowing your information is accurate. Understanding what triggers reviews. Keeping documentation. Responding promptly. These simple actions can mean the difference between a routine verification and a prolonged ordeal. It's also worth saying this clearly. Asking questions is not a red flag. Clarifying confusion is not suspicious. Reaching out for help is not an admission of guilt. Too many people stay silent because they're afraid of drawing attention to themselves, when in reality, silence is often what escalates situations unnecessarily. Another issue fueling fear right now is misinformation. Some viral posts suggest benefits are being canceled nationwide. Others claim mass disqualifications are already happening. These claims spread fast because fear spreads fast. But the truth is more nuanced. Enforcement is increasing, yes. Reviews are expanding, yes. But programs are not being dismantled overnight. The danger lies in misunderstanding the difference between increased oversight and elimination. One creates stress, the other would create chaos. What we're seeing right now is the former, but that doesn't mean it's harmless. Oversight without clarity creates fear, and fear leads to mistakes. This is especially true for older Americans and people with disabilities who may struggle with paperwork, technology, or deadlines. When everything shifts toward digital verification and automated systems, those who need the most support often receive the least guidance. That gap is where problems grow. That's why staying connected to reliable updates matters. Policies evolve, interpretations change, enforcement priorities shift. What was acceptable 5 years ago might be reviewed differently today. That doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It means the environment changed. And that's exactly why videos like this exist. Not to scare you, not to sensationalize, but to translate what's happening into plain language so you can make informed decisions. Because the worst position to be in is unprepared and uninformed when a notice arrives. As this enforcement push continues, you're going to hear stronger language. You're going to see more headlines. You're going to feel more tension online. That doesn't mean you should disengage. It means you should stay grounded. Fear makes people click away. Knowledge makes people act. And remember, you are not alone in this. Millions of Americans are navigating the same uncertainty right now. The system may feel cold, but community and shared information make it manageable. Staying aware doesn't make you vulnerable. It makes you resilient. Going forward, the most important thing you can do is stay proactive instead of reactive. Review your information before you're asked. Understand your program's rules before a problem arises. And never assume a letter means the worst without reading it carefully. This moment is challenging, but it's not hopeless. Benefits still exist, protections still exist, appeal rights still exist, but they only work if you use them. Knowledge doesn't eliminate risk, but it dramatically reduces it. As more updates come out, we'll continue breaking them down in real time, without fear-mongering and without sugarcoating. Because honesty builds trust, and trust is what people need right now. If you've made it this far, it means you care about protecting your future and your stability. And that's exactly the kind of mindset that gets people through moments like this. So once again, if this information helped you feel clearer, more prepared, or less alone, make sure you hit that like button. It tells the algorithm that real, accurate information matters, and it helps this message reach others who need it just as much as you do.